vote, please.
Mayor Dietman.
Here.
President Percival.
Here.
Vice President Bolt.
Here.
Councilman Capabianco.
Here.
Councilman Long.
Here.
Councilman Sidlow.
Here.
Councilman Swigert.
Here.
Councilwoman Guy.
Here.
Chief Murray.
Here.
Mr. Powers. Mr. Wills.
Here.
Ms. Catania will not be here.
She's
Okay, Mr.
excused.
Bennett is here.
Ms. Catania is excused.
Yes.
And Vice President Bull has asked me to speak in a hurry. He's going home to celebrate his wife's birthday.
Thank you, Madam President. They're holding cake and ice cream for me.
I will try. Council had an opportunity to read the minutes of the previous meeting. What's your pleasure?
Make a motion to pass last month's minutes.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? So moved. Mrs. Higgins, do you have any correspondence this evening?
I do. Not much. This is money brought in the office during the month of October. Licenses and inspections, $5,355.50. From public utility realty tax to $927.19. Liens, $5,089. Recorder of deeds, $4,411.96. And for parking tickets, $30. From the Tax Claim Bureau, $1,810.67. From the Borough Tax Collector, Ed Fisher, $7,917.86. And District Court, $427.78, with a total income of October, just what came through this office, it does not include EIT or LST, $25,969.96, and that's all I have.
Super. Moving on, Mayor, do you have a report this evening?
Thank you, Madam President. Council, good evening, citizens. At the request of the President of Council, because there were some individuals that were not at last month's meeting, the President of Council has requested that I reread the issue concerning disruption of a public meeting. So I beg the indulgence of those individuals who have heard this already. It was dated 20th October 2020, intentional disruption of a public meeting. The disruption of a public meeting by any person or persons and for any reason will not be tolerated. Any person or persons disrupting a public meeting will be escorted from the council chambers by a law enforcement officer. If the disrupted person or persons assumes an attitude of decorum, that person or persons will be allowed to re-enter the chamber. If that person or persons continues to disrupt the public meeting, they will be charged with a criminal act up to violation of 18 Pennsylvania Consolidated Statute 55-5508, disruption of a public meeting, a misdemeanor of the third degree. If while being escorted from the council chambers or any time thereafter, that person or person shows an aggressive action toward any law enforcement officer, they will be charged with a criminal act up to a violation of 18 Pennsylvania Consolidated Statute 2702 ABC, aggravated assault upon a police officer, a felony of the third degree. Police report for October 1st to October 31st. There were 10 crimes reported, 3 thefts, 3 harassment, 2 criminal mischief, and 2 disorderly conduct. 117 calls for service. The most prevalent, domestics, number 7, medical emergencies, 5, assist other agencies, 15, public service, 5, accidents, 4, motor vehicle stops, 15, traffic citations, 13, and 1 ordinance violation. Thank you, Madam President.
Any questions for the mayor? Moving on. Did the fire company give you a report, Mayor? Or
I'm sorry?
did the fire company leave a report for you?
Fire Marshal, you have a report on the fire company? I
No.
can just report that they're making outstanding progress on the financial situation.
Super. I'm very pleased to hear that. At this time, we have called to the citizens for agenda items only. If you see something on the agenda, you have a question, this is the time to ask it, specifically agenda items only.
Is that included in the budget?
Yes.
Hi, Judy Saunders, 62 East Shelton Road. I was looking at the banning shock collars, which quite frankly, I agree with. But how does that affect people if they have invisible fences? May I ask?
Shock collars, we have an ordinance to be advertised if council so desires. If you're familiar with shock collars.
I'm not, so go ahead and
Then-
explain it to me,
then
please.
let me give my pet thing.
Okay.
It goes along with picking up dog do. I'm an animal person. There's various types of collars. One kind of collar will give you a beep. Another kind of collar will give your dog like a static shock, meaning how you walk over a carpet and you get that
Right.
static cling. There's a vibration collar, there's a high-pitched noise collar. There's various ways to train a dog with voice commands versus a shock collar. What'll happen is with a shock collar, if it's defective or if it's on too high of a level for an animal, it can actually give an animal burns. It could cause them to have aggression. It could cause them to have brain trauma. It could cause them epilepsy, confusion, fear, heart attack. It can actually burn a hole through their windpipe.
Oh, my God.
Psychological and pain. There's so many things that a shock collar can do. As far as an electric fence, if you have an electric fence, there's a specific type of device that goes under the dog's collar. It is not the same type of device or frequency as a shock collar. Electric fence has a more of a static ping to it.
Okay.
Like you're walking across a carpet and you get that static, ping, versus a shock collar. Most of the SPCA's and animal trainers do not recommend shock collars. If you leave it on too long and they continue to get that shock, you're going to have an animal go into seizures.
Oh, my gosh. Okay.
And they tell you not to let it outside with a shock collar on unless you're actually with the dog. For two reasons. One, it could malfunction. How do you get it off if that dog is in seizures? An animal will bite during seizures. An animal can be conversing into a convulsion. And you're going to try to get that shock collar off that animal as you're getting the same thing, even though you're shutting off the device. When you shut off the device, if it malfunctions, then you've got a twofold problem. So most animal trainers that I've researched and the SPCA's do not recommend it because there's so many other ways to train an animal.
You sold me. Okay, thank you.
In short, Judy, the proposed ordinance for Borough Council's consideration would have no effect, would not regulate, would not prohibit electronic fences.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody have a question concerning agenda items only? And that was my speech, Judy. Thank you on animal and shock collars. I'd like to remind council, we're going to move on to the president's report, and I'll try to be brief. December's meeting is going to be December 16th at 7 p.m. because of the Christmas and holiday coming forth. And I'd like to remind council, because we are still in budget season, until it is advertised through authorities tonight, not to post any of the preliminary budget. As everybody knows, it's illegal to put out a post on the preliminary budget until it's legally advertised, which is in violation of Borough Code 1308A. As everybody can tell, we are trying to adhere to all the COVID restrictions. Temperatures are being taken. Council room, actually this building has been disinfected several times. Council room has been disinfected. Council tables, we require masks, and all necessary protocols currently being taken. Until the governor changes and shuts us down, we will continue to take every precaution that we can to keep everybody in this room safe. And that's all I have this evening. I promised Doug I'd be quick. At least for now. Moving on to public safety, code officer Councilman Capabianco?
Thank you, Madam President. All the police vehicles underwent their general maintenance for the month. For code violations, we had a violation along Houston Road between East Avon and East Roland. It's the property of the Pico. I don't know if everybody saw that online or social media. Everybody's going there and putting their trash down over there. That has been resolved after Pico got their citations. Next day,
Great job.
they cleaned it up. So that's the borough putting our foot down on their necks to get things done around here. For Public Works, I can report general progress. However, we did have a repair in one of our heaters. We had to get a new transducer for the heater over on the police side. It was old and it had a hole through it. And Madam President, I can't express this enough to you. Thanks again for having all the council hold their money here and not to spend it outwards to anything else, because this is the main reason why we're not spending money and our budget's so tight here, because of stuff like this inside the borough.
Everybody's done good jobs.
Yes.
Thank you.
Other than that, I can report general progress.
Any questions for Councilman? Moving on to ordinance, Councilman Schwager.
First ordinance that was presented to me to advertise was ordinance 564, which is the shock collars. I'd like to just read through this right now. Borough Council of Parkside, Delaware County does hereby enact and ordain that no person shall place a collar on or attach a device to any animal that is able to administer an electronic shock to the animal. The purpose shock collars can cause physical pain. I believe you've actually gone through extensively as to the purpose for the ordinance. Violations and penalties. Any person found violating the provisions of the chapter shall, upon conviction, pay a fine of $100 plus costs for the first violation, $200 plus costs for the second violation, $300 plus costs for subsequent violations. Just my own comment on this ordinance is that you did mention, and Solicitor mentioned about the difference between a shock collar and a fence, the collars for a fence. I don't think this ordinance delineates that enough. I think there needs to be a little bit more definitive nature to this before we advertise.
Well,
Because, I mean,
electronic
be-
fences are different, have different devices and frequencies than a standard shock collar.
But my issue is, does that electric fence deliver an even if it's a small static type shock, it still delivers an electronic shock to the animal, which is this is why I'm just saying it needs to be a little, I'm not arguing that we should have the ban. I think this just needs to be a little bit more specific in, as far as what.
When you have an electric fence around your property, the dog on its collar has a receiver. When the dog gets near the electronic fence, it can give there's several ways to do this. The device can be set as a beep, a buzz, a ping, or a static ping. It's the shock collar, if you've ever seen one or had a dog that had one, the shock collar is set on different frequencies depending on the size of the dog.
Right.
That's different than the receiver that goes on a dog's collar if you have a perimeter.
I
Totally
agree, I
different.
agree with you, and I
Totally
totally see your point. But what I'm saying is the way the ordinance is worded is that it says, it administers an electric shock to the animal, even if it's that little static shock coming from the receiver on an electric fence. By the ordinance, at least the way I interpret the reading, is that would be in violation of the ordinance as per written right now.
Okay, counsel, what's your thoughts on this?
I would ask you, how would you write it?
I'm not sure.
Oh.
I mean, I don't know how to delineate. I would say we'd have to get more information from a veterinarian or somebody that knows, can give you the specifics on the difference between the training or the
As I said before,
Shock,
you're talking apples and oranges.
I know, but
Yeah.
I'm saying we need to delineate the apples and the oranges in the ordinance.
I agree. I think more information needs to be put in because there's somebody's going to take it and try to split a hair on this. Yep.
Jay, would you go back and put something in excluding electronic fences?
Yeah, I
please?
think I can make that clear, that in particular sentence or two, that I believe can delineate that so that there's no dispute with regard to what is precisely being prohibited here in Parkside Borough.
Okay. If council's good with that, then we will postpone this until next month. Councilman, do you have more? I think you do.
Yes. Ordinance 565. Due to the nature of this ordinance and the length of this ordinance, should I read the whole thing as is or just
Why don't you
give
do,
the highlights and then allow them, once the advertising?
why don't you do the title and a synopsis of it?
Okay. For those of you that were at the council meeting last month, the chief recommended an ordinance. This is ordinance 565, an ordinance of the Borough of Parkside, Delaware County, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, providing for a civil penalty for a minor public health violation in Parkside Borough. This is a civil penalty, whereas a civil penalty provides a practical tool and common sense approach to controlling for the use of small amounts of marijuana. This would become a civil penalty as opposed to a criminal. Chief, please correct me with anything that I might misstate. The reason for the ordinance is that the fees from the civil penalty, as long as we have the ordinance enacted in Parkside, those fees will come back to Parkside as opposed to going on to the county.
Correct. And we're talking small amounts as in 30 grams or less.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 565, or not adopt, sorry, advertise.
Advertise.
Ordinance 565.
Second.
Well, do we have questions?
Question on the
Sure.
motion?
Yeah, so, county fine is $50, and this calls for a fine of $100.
Okay.
Can we amend this down to the county level?
Why would we?
Well, why are we exceeding the county level?
We have the, certainly discretion to go anywhere from $25 up to $300. I think it is the council president's prerogative that $100 is a sufficient fine. And again, that is monetary income that would certainly go to the benefit of the borough and the borough taxpayers.
Any other questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? So moved to advertise.
Going by the agenda, I'm assuming ordinances 566 and 567 will be introduced by the
Further.
treasurer?
Further down.
Okay. Then at this time, I can just report general progress for ordinances.
Super. License and inspection, does anybody have any questions for Councilman Schweiger? License and inspections, Councilman Long?
Thank you, Madam President. Permits issued for building was residential 6, commercial 0. Plumbing residential 4, commercial 0. Mechanical residential and commercial 0. Electrical residential commercial 0. Use and occupancy inspections were completed, 11 of those. Reinspection was completed 2. And street opening permit issued 0. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions for Councilman Long? Moving on, emergency management, Mr. Powers, how are you?
Thank you, Madam President. We have, I'm going to give you all 3 reports at one time,
Sure.
make it much easier. We have 1 fire investigation. We have 2 health investigations, 1 COSA with me, and we're working to address that problem. The other one is, as of November 18th, Delaware County reported 87 new cases, bringing the total positive cases in Delaware County of COVID to 16,721. There have been 836 COVID deaths since this spike has reoccurred. One of the eateries here in Parkside is being investigated by the state police for not following COVID restrictions. So I'll keep council abreast on what's going to happen there. The state police can either fine them or shut them down. This is the third time that myself and Nick has been there once with me. I've been there 3 times now. And the state police was called, and they'll make a determination on how to move forward. That's all I have.
Super, thank you. And I don't understand any business not cooperating.
I got something to say.
Any questions?
Yeah, Rob, that one with the COSA down here, there's work being done over there. I forgot to tell you when I saw you earlier today, but we have some plumbing work going on over there, so it's a good thing. No permits needed because we know what's going on. So I want to keep you abreast of that.
Any questions for Mr. Powers? Moving on to the finance, Vice President Bull, how are we doing here?
Thank you, Madam President, ladies and gentlemen. First, I would like to make a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? So moved.
Thank you. Madam President, I would like to make a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? So moved.
I've looked over the preliminary budget, and even with some of the things that are kind of fluctuating with assessments and bringing on a few more bills, I guess you would say, everything seems to be in order, and I would like to commend Joe Pacini for his hard work on this. It was a little bit of a little different than in past years with the way the county has done the reassessment and mill rates, and he had a lot of things to juggle to get us this work here. So,
And I'd like the treasurer to explain what we've cut and also the law of the 10% issue.
Yeah, thank you. This year, the county did a reassessment of all the properties. They put a company went out and then reassessed the properties based on market value. So what happened in Parkside as well as all the other towns, the assessment is going to be well over what it's been in the past. But by law, you're not allowed to raise taxes on the assessment. So if your assessment this year is $100,000 on your house, and with the new assessment it's $150,000, you're not supposed to pay more in taxes. So what we do is we pass a revenue neutral budget, and then once we find out where we are deficit-wise, we can then raise taxes 10% once your assessment's set, so roughly about $1 million to cover some of our expenses. And that's pretty much, this 12.5 mils will come down because the county has the reassessment on the website, but it's not in an Excel spreadsheet. You can't handle it, I can't even see it. So we'll be getting the letter sometime in December. We normally get it November 15th, but with the COVID and everything, it's really banging us up because we have to have this passed by the end of the year. We'll get our assessment letter from the county sometime in December, and we'll also get, I'm sure a lot of people are appealing their assessments, so that could affect our tax rates too. So what we did was, we cut some things, a portion of the money we were gonna pay the fire company, we cut. We pulled out the truck bed that we were gonna pay for. We cut some in recreation, and there are also some cuts in
Newsletter,
newsletter, that's right, we're going to two instead of 4.
Twice a year.
But what happened, where the problem is, it's not an expense issue. Most towns, it's a revenue issue. With COVID, the loss of jobs, and with the shutdown, it's very difficult to budget what the earned income tax is going to be coming in the fourth quarter and the first quarter of 2021. People are probably going to hold the real estate taxes, whereas in the past they've paid a discount period, not knowing what the future holds. They may hold the pay at face time, so we won't get our cash in as quickly. And then also, court fees and fines are down because the court's closed. Permits are down, expect to be down because not a lot of people aren't building. The only thing that's actually up is real estate transfer tax because a lot of people are selling their homes because the market's so good. It's kind of weird. But the council's done a real good job managing expenses. I've been here about 13 or 14 years working here, and we've really started to accumulate a surplus, which is kind of nice. A rainy day fund for any major expenses, we have money to pay for it without having to go out and get a loan to pay for it. We budget a police car. The The police get a small raise based on the contract. There's a small raise for the non-uniform employees in here. We still have to get the tax anticipation note, but that's at a pretty low rate right now. And then there'll be an increase in the trash, not due to anything the council did. The county dump site raised their tonnage to $3 a ton, up to $58. And 4 or 5 years ago, that was $23 a ton. It's up to $58 now. So we had to raise our trash fee $245, $17 to $245 a year, which is a steal. I mean, you get your trash picked up twice a week, every week of the year for $245. Your cable bill probably costs $150 a month, and the channels stink. So this is you're
Mine's more
nobody
than
can really
that.
argue the trash, but to the council's credit, they don't control the cost of the trash. The county does. And with the dumping site, landfills being filled more and more up, they have to find other ways to put the trash somewhere, so they increase the cost. So $17 increase isn't that bad. And you also kept recycling, I guess, about a year or two.
That's
ago.
correct.
So when a few towns, other towns had cut recycling, we kept it here, that's why our trash fee went up a couple years ago too. But all in all, the budget's pretty solid. We'll know better in December what the actual assessment is on people's properties when the county sends out their letter. And, you know, and we'll end up with a surplus this year, because people will watch what they're spending.
And I looked at the website as you did. I could not find, well, number one, I could barely see.
That's the thing, and it wasn't, you couldn't download it to an Excel spreadsheet, so I couldn't even add it up.
You couldn't download it.
And there's no total.
And there was no totals. And I kept looking for the totals, but they didn't give you. So it was useless. So we're still, at this point, have a balanced budget with a projected